It's time for you to be the you that you know you can be and to find your mettle. My name is Preston Ewell, and I'm the host of the Mettle Mentality Podcast. I'm a husband, a father, and American soldier. What is mettle? It's your strength of character that you rely on to endure hardship. It's your grit. Together we'll learn from some dedicated, passionate, mettle-minded individuals who define themselves by their grit and their graduation from suffering. Be mettle. Stay mettle. Welcome to Mettle Mentality. I am your host, Preston Ewell. My guest for today's show is a motivational speaker and the co-host of the Hyperconscious podcast, Kevin Palmieri. Kevin, Nope, I'm not even going to go there. I know you're doing good. More important question, Bigfoot, what's your opinion? Go.
My opinion on Bigfoot. I feel like, due to lack of evidence, I got to go with a no. I got to go with it's not real.
Man, can I just find one person who will entertain the idea that Bigfoot's real? Everybody.
We got these cameras in our pocket, and you only have that 1968 footage or whatever it was. And it's just, I need some new footage. Get me some new footage, Preston, and I'll believe. I'm going to
send you a podcast. So the very first podcast I listened to was a Bigfoot podcast.
I'll send it over.
I will, and he has over 600 episodes. He's been doing it for 10 years, and I listened to it. I was like, I like weird, I like X-Files stuff, right? And I'm like Mulder in the X-Files. I want to believe. I just like weird stuff, and it's not that I believe any of it. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe being a kid hanging out with my dad. It's funny because I don't know details about you. I don't even know where you live. What state?
Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah, see, right? I was I didn't know that, but I feel like I know you because I know your character. Does that make sense? And I think that's pretty cool. You don't get to know a lot of people that way.
It's funny, man. Before the call, I wrote down the 3 words that I want to embody me, and it was relatable, trustworthy, and consistent.
They're good,
and
yeah.
I want to be consistently relatable, and I want people to be able to rely on me. I'm trying my best to get to everybody I can and do as much as I can, and I want to help as many people as I can.
No, that's cool. And then I don't know your story. I don't know, like I said, I don't know a lot about you, but the fact that that's who you're trying to be, that's who you are. Then I'm a firm believer that the person that you're trying to be, you are what you do, right? So you are your actions. And so if you're being a good person, you're a good person, right? And so I think like what you're doing, that's really commendable. Mm-hmm.
I always want somebody to leave, whether it's an event, whether it's a coaching call, whether it's a podcast, whether it's anything. I want them to leave better than they found me. And I always want them to think oh, wow, he is so much better in person than I expected. I don't ever want them to leave upset, ever. That's it's an obsession with me. That's genuinely.
No, that's really cool because you want to be this consistent. That's consistency, right?
Yeah.
Consistently be the same person, not an actor. Yeah. Today's been a crazy day, and I'm sick. I've got this cold. And that's I get what you're saying. That's that hits my biggest fears, my insecurities. Is I know that as I get closer to people get closer to me, they get to know me. It's are they really going to like the person that I am? And it's scary. It scares the crap out of me, but I know it's the only way.
Yeah. If you're not scared, you're not living. You got if you don't have something planned that's going to scare you, you're comfortable. And if you're comfortable, you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're dying.
I don't want to ever come across as hypocritical, and people think that I believe that I have these things mastered. I have these things taken care of. I'm the teacher. No, I'm a student of this too. Let's do this together. But I know that these are the important things that help you grow. These are the point. If you can learn these skills, you'll be better. Well, tell me about so you have the Hyperconscious podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Which is great. And how many episodes did you say you had?
265.
260. When did you start that?
So the podcast started in April of 2017, but I wasn't consistent at the beginning. I was doing one a week, and then I skipped a couple weeks. So it's been around since April 2017, however long that is.
Yeah, so why did you start the podcast?
So originally, I'll go into my whole story about it. So in 2015, I was extremely successful. I had a 6-figure income. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I had the body of my dreams. I had a brand new car. I had a new apartment. So I had everything that anybody at 25 years old could want. And inside, I was living a nightmare. I was not happy. I had no self-belief. I had no self-esteem. I was so insecure. I had no confidence at all. And my girlfriend ended up leaving me. I did a bodybuilding show, and I was like super low because, you know, if you've ever done like super hard dieting, when you get below a certain body fat percentage, your hormones are all screwed up, and I was depressed and I was anxious, and my girlfriend ended up leaving me. Now, we lived together. We had a lot of things together. So this was my first like super, super serious relationship. And when she left, she said, I was going to break up with you a couple months ago, but I thought you might kill yourself because I was so low. And when she left, that was the first time in my life I ever had to like take stock in who I was as a man. And I had to face these demons. I had to face, like, I really had to face the fact that I wasn't secure. And I put so much of my own value on these external things, beautiful women, nice cars, tattoos, muscles. Like, I put so much of my self-worth on external factors. And after she left, I got into personal development for a little while. I remember saying positive affirmations before bed and posting motivational quotes. But I remember laying in bed and I was thinking to myself, I want this to be the best year of my life. I want this to be the most successful year of my life. So every night before bed, I would say these positive affirmations. I am making $100,000 this year. I'm the richest I've ever been. All of these positive affirmations. That next year, the year after she left me, I traveled for 10 out of 12 months up and down the East Coast as a construction foreman. I got a promotion, and I was just always gone. I was only working. That's all I did. Work, lift, sleep, eat, repeat. Literally in hotels every single week. And fast forward to the end of the year, I made that $100,000. I got past the six-figure mark, which is what I wanted. I really, really wanted to do that. But nothing changed. Nothing changed. I was still insecure. I still lacked confidence. I still put value on outside things to bring me inside value. And I went to bed one night and I thought to myself, it doesn't matter what you have in the garage. It doesn't matter what bed you're sleeping in, who's sleeping next to you, where the bed is, how big your house is, what you did today or what you're doing tomorrow. The only thing that really matters is what's in your head. And that's how hyper conscious was born. I started the podcast a little bit after that. And like I said, the podcast wasn't super serious at the beginning because I was still traveling for work, but I'll never forget when the moment shifted, when I went from making money as my main motivator to helping other people understand that if you can become aware of the way you think, you can like change your life. That was such a huge breakthrough for me. So this was another year of travel, and I started the podcast and I was traveling, so I couldn't record episodes, and I was miserable. I didn't want to do the job anymore. I didn't care about making the money. I cared about podcasting. I wanted to be a podcaster full time. And it got to the point where I was in a crusty hotel room in New Jersey, and it was 5:45 in the morning. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, lacing up my work boots. And it was like a winter day. I'll remember it was super cold. And I just had these voices in my head. And I just tell people, like, imagine having 10 televisions on and every single channel is on a different, or every single TV is on a different channel. And you can't make out like exactly what's going on. But I just remember thinking, you're stuck here. You can't, how are you going to succeed as a podcaster? You've never done that before. You've never interviewed anybody. You've never spoken in front of anybody. How are you going to do any of that?
Yeah, I totally relate to that, man. Yeah. Like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
You just doubt.
Yeah, there was so much doubt. I still didn't have any self-belief. And it's like, you're going to quit a job making $100,000. You don't have a college degree. Like, you're stuck here. How are you going to leave? My bills were $3,000 a month. Like, there was no option. I couldn't leave. And I remember thinking, all of these problems, I don't know how to make them go away. So the only thing I could think of in that moment was to kill myself. And I genuinely was sitting on the edge of the bed thinking to myself that if I was gone, if I was dead, my problems would be gone and they would be dead as well. And I'm just sitting there, and it's just this dark, lonely feeling in a crusty hotel room 3 hours away from home. And I ended up texting Alan, the co-host of the Hyperconscious podcast. And I told him what I was feeling. And he talked me through it and just said, like, dude, you're done with where you are in life. Like, it doesn't mean you have to, get rid of life. You just need a change. And 4 months later, I think, I quit that job. I got rid of all of that. I went full-time into podcasting, and now I'm up 265 episodes in with Alan. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a peak performance coach, and I also am a podcast consultant. So I went from suicidal to living my dreams. And I don't ever want anybody to think it was easy, because it was very difficult to do, but it was worth it for sure. So the day that I was debating suicide was one of the hardest days of my life, but it was one of the best days because I realized my purpose. I want to be the person that I needed when I was at my lowest point. And even more than that, I want to be the person to help others, like to prevent them from actually getting to that lowest point. And I went all in on that and chasing my dreams after that.
That's incredible, man. I really like how you man, we all go through stuff like that, right? Like everyone's going to have a moment. They're like, what the hell? What am I doing? What the hell's going on? Like, what is my purpose? Like, I get really frustrated too. Like when I hear people, motivational speakers and whatever, they say like, do the thing that you're passionate about. Like people like they knew what they wanted to do since they were a kid. Like follow your dream as a kid. Like, what did you want to be when you were a kid? Like, go do that. Like I had no idea what I wanted to be when I was a kid. I just want to be a good person. That's all that I knew. I just knew I wanted to be a good person.
I think the problem with it's not always exactly what you want to do. So I never knew consciously I wanted to be a podcaster, but I remember I used to drive a truck for a living. I used to drive a truck and deliver construction materials. And I always used to listen to the radio. I never listened to music when I was driving. I used to listen to sports talk radio and like different morning shows. And I always remember thinking, imagine if you could talk for a living. Mm-hmm. How amazing would it be just to be able to talk on the radio? Ding, ding, ding. Looking back, okay, now I'm a podcaster. I talk for a living. I also really love Joe Rogan. And I love the Joe Rogan experience. And I've watched so many episodes of that podcast. And I always admired him for the conversations he had and the deep conversations he had. That inspired me to have deep conversations. Ding, ding, ding. What are the people that you look up to, your role models, the people that you really admire? What are they doing? Why do you admire what you admire in them? Is there a passion that you can pull out of that? It's far easier to look back and realize why I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about. But if you could get paid to do anything in the world, what would it be? Or even better, if you never had to worry about money again, how would you formulate your day? Not even what would you do, because you could say help people. Cool, great. But how would you formulate your day? How would you actually help people? Would you go up to them and help them with their groceries? Would you help them shovel their yard? Would you be a podcaster? Would you be a speaker? There's a lot of ways. Would you try to find the cure for cancer? There's 100,000 ways to help people, but how would you do it? What would your vehicle be?
So do you feel like what you're doing now is that vehicle? Absolutely.
We gave a speech 4 weeks ago, like a month ago, I think, at a college, a maritime college, Mass Maritime Academy in Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts. And seeing the kids react to what you're saying is one thing, but getting all the direct messages on Instagram after with people telling you their deepest, darkest stories, that's how you know what you're doing not only matters, but it's for you. Like I sent a video message to every single person that reached out to me, and it's just the fact that they're willing to tell me the things that they're going through and say like, hey, you inspired me to do this. I've never thought of things that way. It's like, okay, I'm definitely doing the right thing. And it's another way you know is because I used to value all the outside things that made me feel good. Now I still care about them. I do value nice things, but I'm so much happier with the man I am that I have become, and I'm on my way to becoming the best version of myself. And that makes me happier than almost anything. I'm just so proud of who I am, and I haven't always been. But so much of that is because who do I have to be in order to change the world? I have to be pretty amazing, right? And that means I'm going to get up and do it every single day. And I'm going to jump on podcasts and do coaching calls and do speeches and, do podcast episodes and all that. So yeah, I'm definitely happy.
No, you can tell, like, just the way that you carry yourself, like you wear your joy.
I was afraid to be judged. I still am at times, right? And I want to make that abundantly clear that, like, I do not have it all figured out. I am not fearless. I still struggle with anxiety. I still have days I don't want to get out of bed. I want to make that abundantly clear.
What is that? What does Mettle and having a Mettle mentality mean to you?
So I, on Instagram, am the never quit kid. I have never quit tattooed on my arm. The one thing that I have always thought that I have that other people don't, or that might give me a head start, or it might separate me from others, is my ability to deal with pain, whether physical or mental and emotional. I was raised in a single parent household. My father was not around. I didn't meet my father until I was 28. So my whole life has been a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of discomfort, a lot of questions. And to me, it means continuing to show up, regardless of the outcome. I always tell people action is way more important than outcome, because you can get feedback from the action. Even if the outcome is terrible, you either know what to do, what not to do, or you can figure out what to try differently. So I think Mettle is being able to consistently show up regardless of the outcome and be your best self when people aren't looking.
Integrity.
That means so much to me, because the truth always comes out eventually.
You want to be known for your character.
Yes.
And that is that how you've always lived your life, or is this a new thing?
Very new. Very new. Yeah, before it was about results. I had a nice car. I was in shape. I wanted my results to kind of precede who I was. Yeah. But then it's like, I want people to like me for me. And having a nice car doesn't help anybody. Having, being strong doesn't really help anybody. So I realized very quickly that if I want to help other people go through what I went through, I have to figure out how to not only survive what I went through, but what are the steps to thrive after that? And also, especially in today's day and age with social media, so much of our quote unquote value is based on how many followers we have, how many likes we're getting, whether we have a blue check mark next to our name. And I told you this in the preamble, Alan and I have spoken with many people on the podcast, and we've also rejected many people because we learn quickly that they're not the person that they say they are. Their character does not meet their profile. And that locked it in for me.
So what are some of the internal struggles that you've had to overcome to get to the point where you're at now?
Oh man, not believing in myself is the biggest one. It's something I still deal with daily. I still have insecurities. I still doubt myself. I've never been very future oriented. So I've never said like, oh, I'm going to succeed at this, and then taken the actions to succeed and then built confidence that way. I've never really been confident. Now there's things that I am, like speaking, I'm pretty confident at. Podcasting, I'm very confident at. In the gym, I'm very confident. When it comes to my relationship, I'm very confident. But those are the things I've done the most. So for me, confidence, 1,000%. 1,000% is the biggest thing I struggle with on a daily basis, minutely, hourly basis.
How do you overcome your fears and not allow fear to be the dictator in your life?
So I think it depends. There's a couple things. It depends on what the fear is. So for you, for instance, you have to get very honest with yourself and say, this is either one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to let my fears win, and I'm not going to post this Instagram, and I won't get my dreams. I won't get this podcast. I won't be able to help a single soul. Or I'm going to deal with this discomfort for 10 or 15 minutes because it goes away. It goes away. I leverage my why power. I've given up everything for this, Preston. I've given up everything, the friendships, everything. Everything in my old life, I've given up. And I don't suggest everybody do that necessarily. But for me, there is no other option. I'm terrified of planes. If you want to be a world-class international speaker, you either get on planes or, you know what I mean, or you teleport places. And I don't have the power to teleport quite yet. So I had to get over the fear of planes. So I think it's leverage your why power. If your family was in a burning building and you were afraid of fire, you'd go and ask them.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If your why is greater than your fear,
Yeah.
then that's what determines your actions.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they don't know why they do what they do. They don't live with intention or purpose. Why do you think people quit on themselves? Why do they quit on their dreams, or just in general? Why do people quit?
Lack of belief, 100%. If you don't think you're going, a couple things. If you don't think you're going to get the result you want, why put yourself through pain? If you don't think the result will be worth it, why put yourself through pain? I think those are the biggest two, because why would you invest all sorts of time, energy, money, feelings, getting over fears, dealing with rejection, dealing with pain, if the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow wasn't what you wanted? You wouldn't. And if you don't think you're going to succeed, number one, you're not going to be all in, and you're not going to be willing to overcome the fears that you have to, but you'll quit at the first sign of discomfort. So I think those are the biggest two.
Yeah, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're not growing if you're comfortable.
Right.
So today I was at lunch, and excuse me, this cold came on, and I was talking to my wife on the phone. She's like, "Oh, every time you get sick, you just like, you're not present there, and you're there, but like you're not fully present." She's like, "Please don't do that." And I got off the phone with her and was like, "Oh man, she's right. Like, how do I stay present while being uncomfortable?" And that's the question that I pose to you: is when you feel uncomfortable, how do you stay connected?
Set an intention. So I don't do this every time. I don't want to make it seem like I do, but I try to, when I get into new rooms and I'm uncomfortable, I try to set an intention, and that gives you something to focus on. You're going to focus on something. More often than not, it's going to be how uncomfortable you are. But what if you had a different intention, like to make somebody else feel good? You have to be present. If you're not present, you're not going to be able to pay attention to the words somebody's having. Or what if your intention was to be more interested than interesting? So that means you have to be a good listener. You want to listen to everybody's story. You don't want the conversation to be about you. You want it to be about them. Right? I think most people, and you said this earlier, most people do not set intentions, so they're actually living by accident versus living intentionally. That's what intentionally means. It means you're living with intention. So I think if you go into a room and you set the intention, maybe the intention is, as you walk through the door, you tap yourself on the shoulder twice and you say, "I'm going to set the intention to be present in every conversation I can." And keep reminding yourself.
I like that. So you're deliberately focusing on something besides how uncomfortable you are.
Yeah, because the discomfort is going to be there no matter what. But you can either focus on that, or you can focus on something else to try to shift that a little bit. And what you pay attention to, you're going to notice more of. Like if I said the color orange, right? If I said look for something orange, you're going to see a bunch of things that you would not normally see necessarily. But that's only because you set the intention to find the orange things in the room. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's set the intention to make somebody laugh. Set the intention to make somebody feel good, to compliment as many people as you can, to get as many business cards as you can, right? To work on your sales pitch. Like, this is Mettle mentality, where I sit down and talk. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many different things you can do when you set intentions. But I think so many people go into whatever the room is, whatever the experience is, assuming it's going to be terrible, and they just shell up, and then they just kind of crawl through the discomfort.
Yeah. No, so having a mission, having a purpose in what you're doing, focusing on that. So this reminds me of when I first entered the Army 11 years ago. I was in basic training. And every single morning before we went and did PT, we would stand at attention and we would say the soldier's creed. And it's, "I am an American soldier. I'm a warrior member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values." And the line I want to focus on is this one: "I will always place the mission first. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade." And I think I'm forgetting a line because this cold medicine is not doing well in my memory. But the point is, I will never quit, and I will always place the mission first. And so if you have purpose, in what you're doing, right? If you have this mindset, this mentality of, I don't care what happens, I'm not going to quit until my body's dead, right? That you're focusing on the mission, the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. And I think as I'm saying this out loud, I'm just my thinking out loud here. The way you carry yourself is like you, like I've said this before, your character is like, you have this mission to be a positive force for good in every situation that you're in. And allowing sharing your strength, allowing yourself to share your strengths. And so that I think that's if I were to say, like, from the little bit that I know of you, that's your mission. Your life's mission is to be a force for good everywhere you go.
I think that one of the things that I always am consciously testing is I want to be the best version of myself possible. I want to be the best man I can be. And that's everything. Like answering a text message that I don't want to answer. That's taking a call before bed. Like whatever it is, what would the best version of Kevin do in the situation? Mm-hmm. Would he do this or would he not do this? Okay, he would do this, then you have to do it. That's the barometer. Like when people say, a question I get asked a lot is, how do you define success? What is success to you? It is becoming the best, most evolved version of myself. And I think that's what I'm doing now. So I literally say my life exponentially grown. I want my life exactly the way it is, but 5 years down the road. Like that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, I think we try to quantify success, right?
For sure.
I think just as human beings, we like to quantify everything. If it's quantifiable, we can compare it. And that's what we do as human beings. We compare our situation. But so when we quantify success, a lot of times I think the number one is money. Or even influence, right? We're talking like social media is like now huge, ingrained inside society and humans. That we compare ourselves to the amount of followers that we have, evolving. I guess that's what we should say. We should be comparing to ourselves to where we were in the process before to where we're in the process now, rather than this perception of making it to an imaginary destination. Because if my goal is to make it to have 10 million followers, like, is that really a good purpose?
No, yeah, but it could be part of the journey. I think so many people get hung up on what is and not what could be. So I like where you're at with that, but it could be, if I said why 10 million followers, as long as you have a good follow-up to that.
Right, exactly.
Why you're doing something is always more important than what you're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
In terms of you.
Yeah, the process, the why is part of the process.
Right.
Yeah, rather than maybe it's just, if you talk about this 10 million followers, like, oh, you want notoriety. Like, well, versus I want to say that I helped 10 million people.
Right.
Right. There's value in that. But when we try to quantify things, especially success, we're really doing a disservice to ourselves, because then we're just comparing ourselves to others, and we have no idea what success means, because it's really not quantifiable. We can't compare it.
Right.
What are some of the opportunities you feel that you may have missed when you were going through suffering, when your perspective wasn't as such as this is an opportunity to grow?
Oh man. So many opportunities. Like, I think I missed a lot of opportunities. I think in the darkest times, I found a way to leverage those. But even before, so I actually went through the fire academy, the Massachusetts Fire Academy, probably 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was so afraid to ask questions that when I graduated, I ended up, so I was on call for my town, and being on call means you have a pager for 24 hours for a week, right? That's the week that you're on call. And the pager goes off at like 3 a.m. I drive down to the station. I jump on an engine. We get to this car fire, and I quickly realized that I had no idea what I was doing. Not a clue. I didn't know what hose to connect where. I didn't know what size the hose was. I had no idea what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And it was in that moment that, like, I realized, by not asking questions, by not getting out of my comfort zone, by not being willing to face rejection or judgment, I lost what I thought was a great opportunity. I wanted to be a firefighter. I thought it would have been an amazing job. And I literally stopped like that week because I realized I was way too far behind to learn what I needed to. Now, was that a limiting belief? Sure. I could have probably put in more time at the department and learned, but my confidence was cracked so much that I didn't believe in myself. I didn't feel I could learn. So I could have very easily used that failure, quote unquote failure, as a lesson. Instead, I used it as a finale. And that was the last day that I was on the department.
So do you feel like you identified with that failure? Like, I don't know how to, or do you feel that you just didn't take that opportunity to grow?
I don't think I identified with it right away. I think immediately I go revert to lack of belief. Like, you're not good enough to do this. That's why you failed. Instead of what could have gone better. What could I have done differently? Upon reflection later, and then like looking back and studying that, I realized that was a scarcity mindset. Right? My mindset was fixed in that moment instead of being focused on growth. But that growth mindset didn't come until a couple of years later. So, you know, in the moment, I didn't know what I was missing out on, but now I understand it better now.
That's the beauty of hindsight, right? Is we say, oh, if I would have done this.
Right.
And I think that's when you have hindsight, you kind of, I think good people share their hindsight with others so that they don't have missed opportunities as well.
That's what coaching is. That's what mentors are. That's what books are. That's what podcasts are, right? If you're learning something that other people can take value from, then you can mentor them, or you can coach them, or you can start a podcast, or whatever it may be, write a book. So I think it's all about sharing that, because everybody goes through similar things, not the same things. But if you've gone through something, somebody else has gone through it, most likely. If you're going through something, you can share it with others.
And that's really the whole what I'm trying to do with this show is, if you're that guy or that girl who's in that dark spot, like you were talking about, where you're like, if I end my life, all my problems will go away. And those moments that if you decide to end it all, we'll say it, put it that way, you don't get there by reaching out for support. You get there by isolating yourself. And I think the reason why so many of us isolate ourselves is we think that we're not relatable. And if we're not relatable, that we don't matter. That our suffering doesn't matter. But I don't think that's where danger is that when we feel that nobody else understands what we're going through. What advice do you have for someone who's in a situation like that?
Oh man, it's heavy. It's heavy.
Sorry, it turned dark real quick right there.
No, you're good. You're good. You're not alone. It is alone as you feel. Like you said, it's most likely because you've isolated yourself, because you're afraid of what other people are going to think, or you don't think people are going to understand why you feel the way you feel, or they're going to think you're broken, or they're going to think you're, unfixable, or any of these things. So number one is, and it's hard to do, but get around somebody who believes in you, because that's, at the end of the day, the reason you feel the way you feel is because you're probably not very excited. You probably don't feel like you have a very bright future. You probably feel like you're stuck. You probably feel like there's no other way out. So get around somebody who can kind of break that free. But I would say seek professional help. I'm so big on like telling people to go to therapy, because I went to therapy a couple times. It was never like a giant part of my life, but every time I went, it helped tremendously. So I would say seek professional help. It doesn't make you less of a man or less of a woman for seeking professional help. When you sprain your knee, you see a doctor. Like, why wouldn't you go see a doctor when you don't feel good about your mindset or your mental health, or, your depression or your anxiety? I think it makes you stronger, actually.
Yeah, no, there's a stigma around asking for help, around emotional health, especially for men. That men don't feel emotions, right? No, only it's getting better. But there's this idea that if you show your emotions, you're weak, especially for men. And so I think that's why a lot of men don't ask for help, because they're afraid of what other people think about them.
But if they only knew that if you want to win in your relationship, be more vulnerable. It will work. And I think that's this is coming to an end, and this is something we're trying to talk about on the podcast. Like, number one, you'll always connect better if you're more vulnerable because you'll be far more authentic, and the truth is what connects us. You can only connect with somebody at the level that you can share your truth. And your relationship, all of the women I've talked to, it's usually like, what would you want more out of your partner? Oh, I would like more authenticity and more vulnerability. You actually get closer. You're more connected. And when you're more connected, there's more love. There's more intimacy. There's more good conversations. There's more good experiences. So that's what I tell men all the time. Like, if you're not being vulnerable because you think, especially your wife's significant other, is going to value you less, it's quite the contrary. She's most likely going to value you more.
Yeah. Oh man, you just hit like my life right now. So I've been married for 13 years to the same woman. We have 3 kids together. And that's something I've always struggled with, is being vulnerable. And it's because I feel like I'll be valued less if she really knows me. But she really does know. And like, she still loves me, right? Like, she's still here for me. She's been nothing but supportive for me. And,
right.
But I my ego doesn't let me believe that, because it doesn't want to be vulnerable, doesn't want to be there. But we can't grow in that relationship, and you don't grow individually if you're not sharing that.
No, and you got to lock in what results do I get when I'm vulnerable? Like, what are the results that I'm getting from the relationship when I'm vulnerable? Oh, we have really good conversation after that. I feel very connected. Like, what are the things that I feel changed after I was vulnerable? If it's always good things, lock that in. Lock in those good feelings and cause and effect. I did this, I got this. I did this, I got this.
Yeah. I think it's hard to be vulnerable if you're not willing to be accountable.
Yeah.
What do you think what's the relationship between those two? What does the relationship between accountability and vulnerability look like to you?
In order to be accountable, you have to first be vulnerable, because being vulnerable means you're putting yourself out there to take possible pain or feedback. And when you're taking accountability, you're saying, hey, this was my fault. I screwed up. Now, taking full and conscious accountability means that you have to be extremely vulnerable, because you're opening yourself up to constructive criticism. So I think if you're taking accountability without vulnerability, you're not taking full accountability. You might say like, oh, my bad, man, versus, hey, I apologize for what I said the other night. I know that it made you feel very bad, and I will do my best in the future not to do that. I understand how much that means to you. Like, you're really saying I screwed up, but you have to be vulnerable to take full ownership. If you're not, I think you're only taking partial.
Yeah, I completely agree that it does require a level of vulnerability to take ownership of your actions, right?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that accountability creates freedom. Because if there's accountability, you don't have anything to hide.
Right.
And if you're hiding things, you live your life in fear of people finding out other things about you. Commitments that we break, or promises that we make to ourselves. I think it begins with ourselves before we start doing it outward.
Yeah.
You have to honor those commitments that you make to yourself.
Oh, that's leadership too. Like, leadership starts within. If you're not a good leader of yourself, it's going to be very hard to lead others, because you don't lead by saying. A good business has a good culture, which means the leader has created a good culture and everybody else likes that culture. I think that leading with fear and leading with scarcity and saying like, this, you do this or else, versus I'm doing this too. This is what I found works best. Like, Alan and I have a team. We have 2 young ladies that work with us, and we're trying to be the best leaders we can in terms of, I would never ask them to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself, right? Like, you're doing our scheduling. I appreciate that so much. If I can ever bring anything to you, I'm only going to bring it to you if it makes it easier for you, if it makes it easier for the team, but it's never anything I wouldn't do myself. And I think leading through your own habits, through your own mindset, through your own discipline, through your own vulnerability, authenticity, all of those things, I think that's the way to be a good leader. Because if you don't like somebody, what are the chances you're going to follow what they do?
If you don't trust them, right? If you think that they're being a fraud and their actions, their words and actions don't match up, you're not going to be vulnerable with them. You're not going to go that extra distance for them.
Yeah, connection's better too.
Let's pretend that the microphone you're speaking into right now was connected to the brain of every single person in the world, and you had 30 seconds to tell them one thing. What would you tell them?
My goodness. I think your reality becomes the parts of your imagination you hold on to the longest. I firmly believe that. If you want something, hang on to that thought, because a lot of people are going to try to take that away from you. And I also would say the biggest difference between the person you are today and the person you want to become is your habit. Make it a habit to practice your mindset. Make it a habit to bring up your personal development. Make it a habit to spend time with people who make you better. Make it a habit to eliminate negativity. Make it a habit to learn something new every day, right? All of those things. Your results are a reflection of your habits. The better your habits, the better your life.
That's great. Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but said that you are your habits.
Right.
And nothing happens by accident. Successful people don't happen by accident. They happen by their habits.
Right.
And making it a habit of changing your mindset to leads you in the direction of being the best you is key. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, sir.
Well, I've enjoyed our time talking, man. I appreciate you doing this for me and just all the help you've given me. You're an incredible person.
I appreciate that.
I don't think you really understand the impact that you've had on my life and my confidence in being able to do this. And I'm deeply humbled by you being here and willing to come on and help me and come on again. It's incredible what you're doing for people.
I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you reaching out.
Hey, real quick, before the show ends, do me a favor. If you have found this show to be of value, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. Better yet, if you know someone who would benefit from the messages that we are trying to share, invite them to listen by sending them a link to your favorite episode.